The night sky was heavy with stars, but the land below was dark and silent. The human explorer Daniel Cross walked slowly across the broken ground of the alien world. His boots pressed into the dust, leaving prints that glowed faintly in the pale light. The planet was quiet, too quiet. No birds, no wind, no sign of life. Only silence. Daniel had been searching for survivors for weeks. His ship had received a strange signal, faint but repeating as if someone was crying for help across the stars. He followed the signal down to this ruined place. A city that seemed abandoned long ago. Crumbled towers stretched upward like skeletons of giants, and strange symbols were carved into the stone walls. He held his scanner in one hand, but the machine gave no clear answers. The signal was near, but it shifted like a whisper he could not catch. He pressed on, his flashlight cutting through the shadows. Then he saw her. She was sitting at the base of a fallen pillar, her body small and still. At first, Daniel thought she was a statue, left behind by whoever once lived here, but then she moved. Her head lifted slightly and her eyes opened. They were wide, glowing faintly like silver moons. Daniel froze. His breath caught in his throat. She was not human. Her skin was pale, almost white, with a soft glow that seemed to come from within. Her hair was dark, falling around her face in tangled strands, and around her neck Daniel noticed it, a collar. It was metallic, pulsing faint blue light with symbols etched across its surface. The girl did not speak. She only watched him. Her eyes carried no anger, no fear, only sorrow. Daniel took a cautious step closer. He raised his hands to show he meant no harm. "Hello," he said softly. His voice echoed in the hollow ruins. "I won't hurt you." She blinked slowly but gave no reply. He looked at the collar again. It was unlike anything he had seen. The symbols were alive, shifting slightly as if they breathed. He wondered if it was a chain, a prison, or some kind of translator. Daniel crouched a few steps away from her. "Do you understand me?" he asked, still no answer. Only silence, but her eyes followed his every move. She was alert, not weak, not broken, just mute. He pulled a ration pack from his belt and placed it carefully on the ground between them. Then he stepped back. Her gaze shifted to the pack, then to him again. Slowly, almost nervously, she reached forward and touched it. She opened it, smelled it, but did not eat. She let it rest on her lap, her fingers trembling. Daniel felt a strange pull in his chest. This girl was no ordinary survivor. Something about her silence, about the collar, made the air heavy. He had seen hunger, fear, and even hatred in others during his missions, but never this kind of deep sadness. "What happened to you?" he whispered, mostly to himself. The collar pulsed again as if it had heard him. For a brief second, one of the symbols shifted into a shape he recognized, almost like a letter from his own language. Daniel leaned forward, heart racing. He pulled out his scanner, aimed it at the collar, and let it hum. The screen flickered, showing half-formed words, suppressed voice, bound memory. His skin went cold. He looked back at the girl. She stared at him with those glowing eyes, waiting, almost pleading. "Who did this to you?" he asked, his voice unsteady. Still silence. Daniel ran his hand over the collar, careful not to touch her skin. The metal was warm, alive, humming with quiet power. He could feel it resisting him, as if the collar itself was watching him too. Then the symbols shifted again. This time they formed into something clear. Read. Daniel's chest tightened. The collar was speaking to him, not with sound, but with words that appeared only when his eyes caught them at the right angle. He swallowed hard. The girl lowered her head slightly, as if giving him permission. He reached for his data pad, began to record, and leaned close to read the glowing lines. His heart pounded in his ears. The collar's message was not random, it wanted to be understood. Daniel hesitated for a moment, then whispered, "All right, I'll read." The girl's silver eyes flickered with light like tiny stars trembling with hope. She did not move, but the air around them seemed to thicken, heavy with secrets waiting to be uncovered. For the first time in his long, lonely search, Daniel felt he was no longer alone. But he also felt the weight of something greater, something dangerous pressing in on him. The mute alien girl's collar was not just a chain. It was a story, and that story was about to begin. Daniel sat in the dust, his heart beating faster than he liked to admit. The ruins were silent, but the girl's presence made the air feel alive. The collar glowed faintly, its symbols moving like ripples on water. Every time his eyes focused, they seemed to shift, forming new shapes. He had seen alien tech before, but this was different. It felt personal. It felt alive. Red, Daniel whispered, repeating the word the collar had shown him. The alien girl tilted her head. Her silver eyes caught the faint starlight above, reflecting it back at him. She said nothing, but her gaze told him she was waiting. Daniel leaned closer, pulling his data pad out again. His scanner tried to capture the collar's glow, but the device glitched, throwing up warnings he had never seen. Data corruption. Translation unstable. He ignored the noise and focused on the symbols. At first, they were simple shapes like marks carved by a child. But as he read, the symbols began to rearrange themselves, shifting into letters of his own language. Words appeared slowly, one by one, as though the collar was deciding what to reveal. She cannot speak. Her voice has been locked. Her memories are bound. Her truth is forbidden. Daniel's mouth went dry. He read the words aloud, his voice trembling. The girl's eyes flickered. She did not nod or move, but her fingers tightened slightly around the ration pack in her lap. Daniel looked at her collar again. "Is this you? Are you showing me this?" The symbol shimmered and a single word burned bright. "Yes." Daniel sat back, shaken. He had spoken to machines, translators, even alien AI systems, but never like this. This was not a normal program. This was direct, intimate, almost like the collar was alive and aware. He read further. Her people gave their song to the stars. They sang for peace. They sang for life. But their voices were stolen. Their words erased. Their songs turned into chains. Daniel stopped reading. His eyes stung. He closed them for a moment, trying to calm himself. When he opened them again, the girl was still staring at him. She did not look angry. She only looked tired, as though she had carried this silence for far too long. Daniel whispered, "Your people. Someone silenced all of you, didn't they?" The collar pulsed faintly, glowing brighter with each beat. The answer was clear. Yes, Daniel clenched his jaw. He had heard stories about wars across the galaxy, species fighting for survival, stronger empires crushing weaker ones. But the way the words were written felt different. It was not just history. It was a wound. He kept reading. Her name is not hers anymore. It is hidden in silence. She is the last of her kind that they could not break. Her silence is not her choice. Her silence is their cruelty. Daniel's chest tightened. He glanced at the girl again. She hugged her knees slightly, as if the words hurt even without sound. The collar shifted again, but this time the letters were jagged, rough, almost angry. "Beware the makers. They will come again. They will chain more voices. They will chain yours too." Daniel felt a cold shiver crawl down his spine. Whoever the makers were, the collar spoke of them like monsters. And if they had done this to her people, what would they do to humanity if they ever came to Earth? He muttered under his breath, "Makers. Who are they?" The collar did not answer. Instead, the glow dimmed slightly, as if retreating. Daniel looked back at the girl. She was watching him closely, her eyes searching his face for something. Trust, maybe. Or courage. "You want me to know," Daniel said softly. "That's why you let me read this." Her hands tightened around the ration pack again, then slowly loosened. She lowered the food onto the ground and placed both hands on her knees, sitting upright. Her gaze never left his. Daniel leaned forward once more. "There's more, isn't there?" The collar brightened suddenly, as though answering his call. New words formed, slower this time, as if they were heavy. Her tears are not only grief. They are memory. To see them is to see what was lost. Daniel blinked, confused. He looked at her again. Her silver eyes shimmered in the dim light. For a moment he thought he saw something. Shadows, faint images moving inside them. Shapes of people, tall towers, light flooding through skies. But then it was gone, leaving only her quiet stare. Daniel rubbed his eyes, shaken. She saw something. The collar pulsed. Yes. Daniel sat back, breathless. He realized now the girl was not just mute. She carried memories, locked away but still alive. The collar was not only binding her voice. It was binding her past, and it was showing him pieces of it. He whispered, "Why me?" The symbol shifted once more, glowing faintly with their final message of the night. "Because you still listen." Daniel felt his throat tighten. In all his years exploring, he had met countless beings, heard countless voices, but this one silent girl with her unspoken words and glowing collar was the loudest of them all. He stood slowly, staring at her. The ruins felt smaller now, as if the world itself was leaning in, waiting for what would happen next. Daniel looked up at the stars above, then back down at her. "All right," he said quietly. "I'll keep listening." Her silver eyes softened, and for the first time her lips curved into the faintest shadow of a smile. But above them the night sky rumbled. Somewhere beyond the ruins a sound echoed, low, distant, and heavy, as if the universe itself had heard the caller's secret and was beginning to answer. Daniel had traveled across empty planets, through broken stations and silent ships. He had seen ruins and heard dying voices on 100 channels, but never had he felt this kind of weight, the weight of one girl's silence pressing against his chest like a storm. The collar still glowed faintly, words fading in and out like breaths. Daniel crouched near her, his hands resting on his knees. He wanted to ask 100 questions, but he knew questions were useless. She could not answer them, not with her voice. So he read. The collar shifted again, pulling his eyes to new words. Her people gave mercy. They gave shelter. They gave to humans what humans had lost. Daniel frowned. Humans? You mean us? The symbols flickered. Yes, his blood ran cold. He thought of Earth, of its history, of all the wars and scars humanity had left behind. Could it be true? Could her people have helped humanity once long ago? And if so, why had no one ever spoken of them? The collar gave him more. They offered their voices. They offered their songs. But songs can be twisted. Songs can be stolen. Daniel's lips parted, and for the first time his eyes burned. He blinked quickly, but it was no use. His vision blurred. He realized he was crying. He had not cried in years. Not when he lost friends in battle. Not when he left his family behind to travel the stars. But now, reading the silent story of this mute alien girl, his chest ached with a grief that was not even his own. The girl noticed. Her silver eyes softened. She leaned forward just slightly, her head tilted as if she could not believe what she saw, tears. Human tears falling for her pain. Daniel wiped his face roughly with his sleeve, but the tears kept coming. His throat tightened. He read the words again, slower this time, as if they were too heavy to carry in one glance. Her people gave to humans. Humans betrayed them. Daniel's hand froze. The words struck like a blade. His breath caught. No, that's not possible. But the collar pulsed again. The words repeated. Humans betrayed them. Daniel shook his head. That can't be right. We're explorers, survivors, we fight, but... His voice trailed off. He had seen enough in his travels to know that humanity was not innocent. Empires were built on blood. Secrets were buried in silence. The girl lowered her gaze. Her shoulders trembled and her eyes filled. Not with anger, not with hate, but with tears. Shining drops welled at the edges and fell silently down her pale cheeks. Daniel felt his chest twist. He wanted to reach out to wipe them away, but his hands froze. This was not his pain to touch. It was hers, carried for years, maybe centuries. Her tears hit the dusty stone, and when they did, Daniel saw something impossible. The ground rippled. Faint images flickered across the broken floor like light on water. He saw towers of silver reaching into the skies. He saw people, her people, standing tall, their voices rising together in song. The sound was not real, but he felt it inside his bones, like the echo of something long buried. And then he saw fire, chains, darkness. The towers fell, and voices were cut off one by one until only silence remained. Daniel gasped and stumbled back. The vision ended as quickly as it began. The dust settled, leaving only her quiet tears and his pounding heart. He looked at her in shock. Your tears, they show the truth, the collar glowed in reply. Yes. Daniel pressed a hand to his chest, trying to steady his breathing. You're showing me what happened to your people. You're carrying their memories. Her eyes lifted to his again, shimmering with sorrow. She nodded once, the faintest movement, but it was enough. Daniel wiped at his face again, though the tears did not stop. For the first time, he understood why the collar had told him, because you still listen. Most people would have looked away. Most people would have feared her or dismissed her. But here he was, broken open by her silence. He swallowed hard. I believe you. His voice cracked as he said it, but he meant every word. The collar pulsed brighter now, forming new words. Belief is the first step. Action is the next. Daniel stiffened. He had thought this was just about her, just one girl silenced and bound. But now he realized it was bigger. This was not just a story of one survivor. This was a warning. What action? He whispered. The collar gave no clear answer. Instead, it pulsed one final line before dimming. They are not gone. They are waiting. Daniel froze. He looked at the girl. She wiped one tear from her cheek with the back of her hand, her silver eyes never leaving his. For the first time, he saw not just sorrow in them, but something else. A spark. A quiet strength. Daniel realized she was not just the last of her people. She was the key. He drew in a slow breath and stood, his fists tightening at his sides. The night around them was still, but Daniel no longer felt alone in it. He felt watched, by history, by memory, by something waiting in the shadows beyond the stars. He looked at the girl again, her tears still glistening in the faint light. This isn't the end of your story, he said quietly. It's only the beginning. The collar glowed faintly, almost like approval. The girl's lips parted just slightly, though no sound came. Yet Daniel felt her silence louder than any scream. Above them, the stars seemed to burn brighter, as if they too were listening. The ruins were colder now. Daniel could feel it in his bones, as if the night itself had turned against him. The alien girl sat quietly, her silver eyes still glowing faintly through the shadows. Her tears had dried, but the memory of what he had seen in them still haunted him. The collar's last words repeated in his mind. They are not gone. They are waiting. Daniel wanted answers. He wanted the truth, not just fragments, not just hints. His hand shook slightly as he leaned forward again, forcing himself to stare at the glowing symbols. Show me, he whispered. I need to know everything. The collar pulsed once, a slow rhythm like a heartbeat. The symbols swirled across the metal surface, rearranging into words that seemed heavier than the air around them. The makers erased her people, but they did not erase the truth. The truth was hidden inside the silence. Daniel swallowed hard. The makers. He had heard the word before in scattered legends, whispers of a species so advanced that even the strongest civilizations feared them. But no one had ever seen them. They were shadows in history, warnings told like ghost stories to scare children. But here in front of him was proof that the makers were real, and worse, proof of what they had done. The collar glowed brighter and more words appeared. The truth is forbidden. The truth is dangerous. But the truth must be heard. Daniel's eyes narrowed. Why is it forbidden? Who forbids it? The collar flickered as if hesitant. Then new words appeared. Humans forbade it. Daniel's breath caught. He read the line again, slower this time. Humans? The girl's eyes lowered to the ground. The collar explained further. Long ago, humans knew her people. They were allies. They gave song and wisdom. They gave voice to the stars. But humans made a choice. To rise, they silenced those who sang before them. Daniel felt like the ground beneath him had cracked. His own kind, the very species he had sworn to protect, the ones he believed were the explorers, the dreamers, had betrayed this girl's people. He wanted to deny it. He wanted to shout that it wasn't true. But deep down he knew. Humanity's history was full of shadows, wars that were never recorded, victories that were stolen. It wasn't hard to imagine the truth being buried, erased, and forgotten. The girl looked up at him now, her eyes trembling but steady. Her silence was heavier than any accusation. Daniel clenched his fists. His heart ached, but he forced himself to read on. Her people saved Earth. When Earth was broken, when humans were weak, they lifted them. They gave food. They gave shelter. They gave song. But the song was turned to chains. Daniel's throat burned. His tears threatened to fall again, but he forced them back. The weight of shame pressed on him, not because he had done it, but because his kind had. Humanity had built its future on someone else's silence. The collar pulsed again, brighter now, as if the truth itself demanded to be spoken. The makers gave the collars. They said it was for peace, but peace built on silence is not peace. It is prison. Daniel stared at the words, his jaw tight. So this thing, it's not just a chain. It's a lie. The symbols shimmered. Yes. He turned to the girl, his voice low but sharp. Why show me? Why now? For a moment there was no answer. Only the girl's steady gaze unblinking. Then the collar flickered one final time and its message appeared. Because the makers will return, and when they do, silence will fall again. On her people, on yours. On all. Daniel's chest tightened. The sound he had heard earlier, that distant rumble beyond the ruins, now felt heavier. It wasn't his imagination. Something was out there. Something was moving closer. He stood quickly, scanning the dark horizon. The ruins stretched endlessly, but shadows shifted at their edges, shapes too large to be tricks of the eye. The girl rose too, her small frame trembling but steady. She touched the collar lightly, then looked at him. For the first time, her lips moved, not to speak but to shape a single word silently. Run. Daniel's heart pounded. He didn't need a voice to understand her, but even as fear gripped him, another truth burned stronger. Running would not erase what he had learned. It would not erase what humanity had done. It would not erase the Makers. He took a deep breath, forcing calm into his shaking hands. No, he whispered. Not this time. I'm not running. The girl's eyes widened slightly, a flicker of surprise breaking through her sorrow. Daniel looked up at the stars. If the truth is forbidden, then I'll carry it. If the silence is a prison, then I'll break it. They can chain 1,000 voices, but they won't chain mine. The collar glowed brighter, as if agreeing. The girl's eyes softened, and though she said nothing, her tears shimmered again. Not only grief this time, but something new. Hope! The ruins groaned around them. The shadows at the edge of the city crept closer. The forbidden truth had been spoken, and now the night itself seemed to stir in answer. Daniel gripped his weapon tightly, standing beside the mute alien girl. The silence had broken, and nothing in the galaxy would ever be the same again. The ruins shook faintly under Daniel's boots. The air was no longer still. It carried a low hum, like the growl of something waking after a long sleep. The alien girl stood close to him, her silver eyes watching the horizon. Her collar glowed brighter than before, as if it too sensed danger. Daniel gripped his weapon but kept glancing at the girl. Every answer he had found only gave him more questions. The forbidden truth, the betrayal of her people, the Makers. All of it weighed heavily on his mind. But now, a new thought pressed harder than all the rest. The collar. It was the key to her silence, the key to her pain, and maybe the key to her freedom. Daniel turned toward her. That collar. If I break it, will it free you? The symbols lit up slowly, forming a reply. Yes, but freedom carries a price. His chest tightened. What price? The collar hesitated before showing the next words. If removed, the voice returns. But with it, the storm. Daniel frowned. Storm? The girl's hands clenched at her sides. She looked away, her body trembling. She seemed afraid, not of him, not of the collar, but of what would happen if it came off. The collar continued. Her voice carries memory. Her memory carries power. If freed, the past will awaken. The Makers will hear. Daniel cursed under his breath. Of course it wasn't simple. Nothing ever was. To free her meant to expose her, to draw the Makers closer. But to leave the collar in place meant keeping her chained, silenced, and broken. He felt the weight of the decision pressing against his chest like stone. The girl turned back to him. Her eyes shimmered faintly, wet with unshed tears. She did not beg. She did not plead. She only stood there, waiting, silent as always, but full of unspoken hope. Daniel felt his throat tighten. This wasn't just about her anymore. This was about all the voices that had been stolen, all the songs that had been turned into chains. He whispered, If I free you, I put everyone at risk. If I don't, I keep you prisoner. The collar pulsed again. This is the choice, freedom or safety. You cannot have both. Daniel closed his eyes. Images swirled in his mind. Earth, humanity, the stars he had traveled. All of it felt fragile compared to the girl's silence. He thought of the tears she had shed, the visions he had seen in them, the towers, the fire, the chains. He thought of his own tears, falling for a people he had never met but somehow already loved. When he opened his eyes again, He stared at the girl. "Do you want me to break it?" he asked softly. For the first time, her lips moved in answer. No sound came, but she shaped the word clearly, silently. "Yes." Daniel's heart pounded. The ruins seemed to lean closer, the shadows deeper, the stars brighter. He reached slowly for the collar. The metal was warm, vibrating faintly under his touch. He could feel the hum of power, the weight of something ancient. The collar reacted instantly. Symbols flared across its surface, faster, brighter, like alarms. Warning. Catastrophe may follow. Warning. Catastrophe may follow. Daniel's grip tightened. He spoke through clenched teeth. "I don't care. No one deserves to live like this." The girl's silver eyes widened. She did not move away. She tilted her head up slightly, exposing the collar, trusting him completely. Daniel drew in a sharp breath, raised the butt of his weapon and struck the metal. A crack echoed through the ruins. The collar flashed violently, sparks bursting from its edges. The symbol screamed across its surface, lines of light twisting into shapes too fast to read. The hum became a roar, rattling the stones beneath them. The girl winced, her body shaking, but she did not pull away. Daniel struck again, and again. On the third blow, the collar split down the center, shattering into shards of glowing metal that scattered across the ground. Silence fell. For a moment, Daniel thought nothing had changed. Then the girl gasped. Her hand flew to her throat, her eyes wide. Her lips parted. And then for the first time sound came, a soft, trembling voice, broken but alive. "Thank you." Daniel staggered back, stunned. The sound was small, fragile, but it cut deeper than any weapon. After all the silence, her voice was like water in a desert. Tears blurred his vision again, but this time they came with a shaky smile. "You can speak." She nodded, her whole body trembling with relief. More tears slid down her cheeks, but they were different now. Not only grief, but freedom. But the victory was short. The moment her voice filled the air, the ground trembled violently. The ruins groaned, and the low hum Daniel had heard earlier grew into a roar that shook the night sky. The girl clutched his arm, fear flashing in her eyes. "They heard me," she whispered. Daniel looked toward the horizon. Shadows moved there, larger now, darker, advancing fast. The choice had been made. She was free, but the storm was coming. Daniel raised his weapon, standing tall beside her. His voice was steady, though his heart thundered in his chest. Then we faced them together. The girl's silver eyes glowed brighter than ever before. Her silence was gone. Her voice was free, and the makers were on their way. The ruins shook like a dying beast. Dust rained from broken towers, and the ground split in thin cracks beneath Daniel's boots. The air carried a deep, pulsing hum, as if the planet itself had woken from sleep. Beside him, the alien girl clutched her throat. Her lips parted again, and her voice slipped free for the second time, still soft, still trembling but alive. "They are coming." Daniel's skin prickled. Hearing her words felt unreal. After all that silence, her voice sounded too fragile to hold such heavy warning, yet the fear in her tone made the truth undeniable. He tightened his grip on his weapon, scanning the horizon. Shadows moved in the distance, massive shapes too large to be human. The low hum grew louder, deeper, like thunder rolling through the bones of the ruins. Daniel glanced at her. "Who are they?" Her silver eyes locked onto his. "The makers." The word carried a chill. It felt ancient, heavy, like it did not belong in her small, trembling mouth. Yet it was real. The shadows were real. The danger was real. Daniel forced himself to breathe evenly. "Then we don't have much time. Tell me what I need to know." The girl hesitated, her body trembling, her voice raw from years of silence. But the collar was gone, and nothing held her back anymore. "They made the collars," she said softly. "They called it peace. They said silence was safety. My people believed them. We trusted. But silence is not peace. It is death. Her eyes glistened with tears. When the song stopped, we became nothing. We forgot ourselves. We forgot our names. She looked at Daniel, her voice breaking. That is why I could not speak. The collar was not only a chain, it was a prison for memory. Daniel's chest tightened. He thought back to the visions he had seen in her tears. The towers, the songs, the fire. Now he understood. The makers had not only enslaved them, they had erased them. The girl stepped closer. Her small hand touched his sleeve. But when you listened, when you cried for me, the prison cracked. My voice returned because you believed. Daniel swallowed hard, his throat burning. He had never thought his tears, his simple human grief, could matter. But to her it had. Her voice grew stronger, though it still shook. You must understand. My people are not gone, they are trapped, scattered in silence. I am not the last. I am only the first to break free. Daniel's eyes widened. Others? There are others like you? She nodded. Yes. Hidden, bound, waiting. If we do not free them, they will fade forever. The hum in the distance swelled louder, shaking the stones around them. A deep roar split the air, unnatural and metallic. Daniel saw the shadows take form. Machines, tall and angular, their glowing red eyes cutting through the dark. The girl's hand tightened on his sleeve. The makers built guardians. They watch the silence. They come when it breaks. Daniel raised his weapon, and we broke it. Her silver eyes locked on his. Yes, and now we must fight. The guardians drew closer, their massive bodies gliding over the ground with unnatural grace. Their shapes looked almost human, but twisted, arms too long, heads sharp and angular, glowing cores burning like fire in their chests. Daniel aimed carefully, steadying his breath. Stay behind me, but the girl shook her head. Her voice grew stronger, steadier, filled with a new edge of power. No, my voice is my weapon now. Daniel looked at her in shock. What do you mean? She stepped forward, her small frame standing firm against the oncoming machines. Her chest rose as she drew in a deep breath. Then she opened her mouth and spoke. The sound was unlike anything Daniel had ever heard. It was not a scream. It was not a song. It was something between deep trembling filled with sorrow and fire all at once. The ruins shook harder. The air itself seemed to bend around her words. The nearest guardian faltered, its glowing eyes flickering. Cracks split across its metal body as the sound vibrated through its core. Then, with a violent shudder, it collapsed into pieces. Daniel's mouth fell open. The girl gasped for breath, her body trembling from the effort. But she stood tall, her silver eyes blazing with light. This is what they feared, she whispered. Our voices, our truth. That is why they silenced us, the other guardians roared, their red eyes flaring brighter. They advanced faster, their heavy steps shaking the ground. Daniel snapped back into motion, firing his weapon at the closest one. The shot burned through its shoulder, but it kept coming. The girl took another step forward. Her voice rose again, stronger now, weaving through the air like a storm. Two more guardians staggered, their metal frames cracking under the unseen force of her words. Daniel felt awe burn through his fear. She was not fragile. She was not weak. She was a storm in human form. But he could see the strain in her body. Every word cost her strength. Her knees shook. Her breaths came ragged, but still she spoke. Daniel rushed to her side, covering her with his fire. Don't burn yourself out, he shouted. She shook her head fiercely. If I stop now, they win again. Together they fought, her with her voice, him with his weapon. The ruins became a battlefield, echoes of her power clashing with the roars of the guardians. When the last machine fell, the night fell silent again. Dust floated through the broken air. Daniel stood panting, his weapon hot in his hands. The girl collapsed to her knees, her body trembling, but her eyes still glowed bright. Daniel knelt beside her, steadying her with his arm. You did it. You broke the silence. Her lips curved into the faintest smile. No, she whispered. We did. Daniel looked at her, his heart heavy but alive. He knew the fight was only beginning. The makers had heard. They would come. But for the first time he believed they had a chance because her silence was broken. And her voice was louder than any chain. The battlefield was silent. The broken guardians lay scattered across the ruins, their glowing cores fading into ash. The air still trembled faintly with the echo of her voice, as if the stones themselves remembered the sound. Daniel sat in the dust, his weapon still warm in his hands. His chest rose and fell in heavy breaths, but his eyes stayed fixed on the alien girl beside him. She was on her knees, trembling, her hair falling across her pale face, yet her silver eyes still glowed like twin moons in the dark. "You did it," Daniel said softly. "You destroyed them." The girl shook her head weakly. Her voice, though fragile, carried a weight far greater than her frame. "No, I broke only the chains. The Makers are not defeated. They are listening now. They know I am free." Daniel clenched his fists. He looked at the fallen machines, then at the endless night sky. If what she said was true, then the battle here was only the smallest ripple of something larger. He steadied his breath and asked, "What happens next?" Her silver gaze lifted to the stars. Her eyes shimmered with both fear and hope. "They will come. Not just for me. Not just for you. They will come for every voice that dares to rise." Daniel's heart pounded. "Then we need to warn Earth." She nodded faintly. "Yes, but Earth is not the only one. My people are scattered, lost, bound in silence across the stars. If we do not find them, they will vanish forever. I am not the last. I am the first. Others wait." The words sent a chill through Daniel. He remembered what the caller had shown him, visions of towers, of fire, of chains. He had thought she was alone, a single survivor. Now he understood. She was the beginning of something greater. Daniel looked at her firmly. "Then we'll find them, together." The girl blinked, her lips parting in surprise. "Together?" "Yes." His voice was steady now, carrying the resolve he felt deep in his bones. "I've seen what happens when voices are silenced. I won't let it happen again, not to you, not to anyone." Her eyes softened, and for the first time a true smile touched her lips. It was small, fragile, but real. The moment held, quiet, almost peaceful. But then a low vibration rippled through the ground. The sky above them darkened, not from clouds, but from something vast moving between the stars. Daniel froze. He looked up. Shapes appeared, blocking out the starlight. Enormous vessels, their hulls sharp and angular, gliding silently above the ruined city. They did not burn fuel, did not roar like human ships. They simply moved as if they were part of space itself. The girl's smile faded. Her voice was a whisper. "They are here." Daniel's pulse quickened. He tightened his grip on his weapon, though it felt useless against ships that could blot out the stars. "Makers," he muttered under his breath. The girl stood slowly, her legs trembling but her eyes burning bright. "This is only the beginning," she said, her voice steady now. "They will come for us. They will try to silence us again. But the silence is broken. They cannot stop it forever." Daniel looked at her, then at the ships above. Fear gnawed at him, but something stronger pushed it down. Determination. He reached out and held her hand. Her fingers were small and cold, but she did not pull away. She gripped his tightly, her silver eyes locking onto his. "Then we don't run," Daniel said. "We fight, and we make sure every voice is heard." The sky rumbled as the great ships descended lower, their shadows swallowing the ruins. The air grew heavy, vibrating with alien power. Yet Daniel did not look away. Beside him, the girl lifted her chin, her voice trembling but unbroken. "They fear us," she whispered. "Not because we are strong, but because we speak. Because we remember. Because we are not silent anymore." Daniel squeezed her hand tighter. "Then let them come." The first beam of light cut down from the ship above, striking the ground in the distance. Dust and fire erupted into the night sky. The ruins shuddered and the world trembled with the weight of what was coming. Daniel stood firm. The girl stood beside him, and together they faced the dark horizon. Above them, the Maker's ships loomed like gods returning to their throne. But on the ground, two small figures refused to bow. The girl's voice, soft but clear, rose again into the night, a single word filled with both sorrow and hope. "Together." And in that moment the silence of the galaxy cracked just a little more.